Aloha! Welcome to the Bishop Museum's Library and Archives for Throwback Thursday. I'm Hadley Anderson.
I am DeSoto Brown, the Bishop Museum historian, and today I start by posing a question.
Uh-oh.
And the question I pose to not only you but everybody is, what's one of the most regulated things in the Hawaiian Islands?
Are we talking about regulations in terms of laws or
Yes.
taxes? Or
No, we're talking about in terms of laws. And it's
street walking. I meant jaywalking. Jaywalking.
Ooh. Yes, okay, well, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But it is something that is very common in other parts of the United States, but that's very regulated here.
Okay. It's not smoking, is it?
No. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you.
Okay.
It's a picture that shows you, I'm talking about signs.
Billboards.
Billboards, and not just billboards, but signs in general. Here is a photograph of downtown Honolulu in the early part of 1912. And as you can see on the side of this building, there are billboards, because in that early stage, billboards and other large signs and other advertising was not regulated here in the Hawaiian Islands. And that was very true in the rest of the United States as well. In fact, the USA became a land of billboards and signs and all kinds of stuff by the 1920s. And people really got bothered by it because it was really in the way. So in that early part of the 1900s, there were billboards lining the roads and all over the place, particularly on the island of Oahu, where there were a lot more people. So this is a picture in, I believe, 1905. And as you can see, in addition to the three mainland national advertisers of Old Dutch Cleanser and Sen Gum and Quaker Oats, there's also a local advertisement for the New York Shoe Store, which despite its name was here in Honolulu. So most of these were big companies, but there were other local companies participated as well. And the way that all ended up being forbidden was through a women's group named the Outdoor Circle. And that started in the early 1900s as a reaction to how offensive they thought billboard advertising was for our beautiful natural environment here.
Thankfully, they formed and did so.
And thankfully, they formed and did so. And they were able to do this at a time when women couldn't even vote yet. But in most cases, they were the wives of wealthy men who were important business people. But also, they said, we as consumers will not buy the products that are advertised on billboards. And that was one of the ways they made a big statement. And I am happy to say that the first president of the Outdoor Circle was my great-grandmother.
Oh my goodness.
For all the work that she did. And they managed to do away with things like this. Here's a photograph of Diamond Head. And as you can see, of course, in those days, it's an unpopulated, wide open area. But seen from the road to Waikiki, here where my finger is a great big billboard for Heinz. Heinz pickles and other products made by that company. So right in the middle of this beautiful vista of Honolulu, there's a big poster, there's a big billboard that's disfiguring the landscape. And it took quite a long time for the Outdoor Circle to get the laws passed. It wasn't until the late 1920s that they finally were able to have the last billboard company go out of business here, and one of the ways they did that was by buying it out.
Oh wow.
So they said, okay, we recognize you have assets here, we recognize that this is a problem for you, we can't just tell you to shut down, so they bought them out and closed them off. Now, however, there still were lots of signs. They weren't billboards anymore, but there still were a lot of signs. And the Outdoor Circle continued to do what they could to keep signs under control. This is a picture from about 1950, and it's of the A'ala Marketplace, which was downtown on King Street across from A'ala Park. And as you can see, there are signs in this picture. They're not really huge, and they're not like billboards, but they were neon, and they blinked. And a lot of the Outdoor Circle members didn't like neon and tried to get it outlawed, which they did not do successfully. But there were a lot of other big signs that individual businesses had, and one of the ones which was the most famous, if not notorious, was this one
Oh, Cow Cow Corner.
which is for a drive-in restaurant called Cow Cow Corner, which was on the corner of Kapiolani Boulevard and Kalakaua Avenue. And this sign was put up in the 1930s, and it was there up until Cow Cow Corner closed in 1960. And a lot of other big signs, including freestanding neon signs that were on the tops of buildings, for example, came into existence. And finally, in the 1960s, it all came to a head. There were two competing used car dealerships on Nimitz Highway, Diamond Motors and Wholesale Motors, which tried to outdo each other in the size of their signs. And finally, the city and county cracked down and said, okay, these are both too large, they are illegal, you guys have to take them down, which they did. And then they began enforcing those laws very strictly. And that's why we don't have a lot of really big signs.
Well, I originally came from Florida, I can definitely appreciate
Yeah.
that. While Florida is very, very flat, there are tons of billboards everywhere.
Yeah.
And moving out to Hawaii, suddenly driving along the roads and seeing no billboards,
Right.
I just marveled at the wonderful landscape.
That's
around
exactly
me.
right. And in fact, by the 1930s, a lot of travel descriptions of the Hawaiian Islands were pointing that out. Look, no billboards, you just drive around and see the beautiful landscape. So, that's thanks to the Outdoor Circle, thank you to my great-grandmother, and that's the thing that's very regulated, signs. That's what's regulated here in the Hawaiian Islands. Thank you all for joining us for Throwback Thursday.
Now, if you want to learn more about what Bishop Museum is up to, please visit our website, bishopmuseum.org.
And if you are able to, come and visit us in person, because there's all kinds of wonderful things to see and do here for everybody in the family, from young to old. But if you can't visit us in person, visit us electronically, and we will be happy to tell you what we are up to. And until next Throwback Thursday, aloha.
Aloha.